This is the Creative Market Free Goods Roundup for the week of November 10th, 2014. There's 6 different free goods this week, but they are free this week only. So if when you're watching this video, any of these items look like something you might have use for, check out the description of this video where I'll place links to each one of these 6 different free items. So I'm going to start at the top here with Close Handmade, which is a font. I have this font open in Adobe Illustrator since that's a really easy way to show it, and it's a very nice looking hand-drawn brushed font. If I zoom in a little bit closer, you can see what I'm talking about here. All the individual elements look slightly distressed to give that brushed look, but all the letters and numbers look extremely readable still, so that won't be an issue. It should be pretty easy to understand what all these letters are if you use them in a particular project. I'm going to zoom back out here. If I highlight over this and go to Type and then Glyphs, you can see that there really aren't any special characters included with this set, so it's just uppercase letters as well as a number set. Things like ampersands, exclamation points, any punctuation at all actually aren't included, so do keep that in mind if you're using this. If you want like an exclamation point, you could take the I, for example, and then outline and flip it upside down to turn it into an exclamation point, or use the point from the I as a period if that's something you want to do. Should be pretty easy to customize stuff, but it's definitely worth noting that none of that is included by default. I typed up this sentence here just so you can see how it looks in an actual word use. Like I said before, it's very legible. The spacing between all the letters is pretty inconsistent, which is fine since this is a very hand-drawn and rough-looking typeface, but I think as a whole this font looks pretty nice, and if you think you'll have use for this particular font, if you're doing some even comic booky stuff or hand-drawn sign-painted looking work, this might be pretty useful for you, and if you do think you'll have use for it, pick it up. Next up we have Ink Age Brush Pack. You will need Adobe Illustrator to use this, as these are Illustrator brushes, and once you open up the file, it's actually going to be a blank page. But if you go to Window and then Brushes near the top here, and look at all the brushes, you can tell there's an absolutely huge assortment of different brushes inside this pack. There's 120 in total, so that should keep you busy for quite a long time. I'll just keep scrolling here quickly to the bottom so you can see all the different ones included, and then I drew some basic shapes here so we can go over how they look actually applied to a shape. But before I do that, also included in this pack are 6 different free hand-drawn sunburst shapes, so that's a pretty nice bonus. It's kind of like getting 2 free products for 1. These look really nice, and it actually shows a really nice possible usage scenario for these brushes. I actually think these were probably made using the free brushes included in this pack, so if you're looking to make some hand-drawn looking sunbursts, this is a really great pack to go ahead and do it, and this is a really great example of the possibilities that are in it. But I'm going to select these items and just select a few of these different brushes at random here so you can see how they apply. They do a pretty nice job of having a random appearance, and I'll scroll through some of these larger ones here too, so you can see how these ones look, and you can increase the stroke weight too if you want to make these look a lot bigger. Maybe I'll do that just for the purpose of showing them in this video, so you can see the actual shape of these lines a little bit better. But there's definitely a really wide variety of different brushes to go through here and play around with. So I'd really recommend when you pick this pack up, just kind of scrolling through this at random like I'm doing right now when you apply to different objects you've made, and then possibly using some of these different strokes in combination with each other so that the overall appearance of what you're working on has a much more random feel to it. That way it will look a little bit more natural and not like the same Illustrator brush which is applied to everything. So that's a really nice thing about having 120 brushes to go through. There's a ton of different selection options, and some of these, like this one, look a lot different than the other ones, so do be sure to scroll down this entire huge listing to go through all the different brushes to pick from. But if these brushes look cool to you and something you might have use for, pick this pack up while it's free and make some stuff. And next up is Corporate Multipurpose Keynote Template. I don't have Keynote installed on this computer, so I can't actually show this in action, so I'm going to go pretty quick through this one. But it is worth noting on the actual product page, there is a video demo that's actually really nice. I'm not going to show that video on this video since I don't know if that's really okay to take someone's video and make a video of it. But if you click on that, you'll actually see the transitions in use on this particular Keynote, and it looks really good. So here are the presentation images they included, and if I go to this page, the overall layout of this Keynote works a lot like a website. So on the sidebar here, there's the different sections that the Keynote presentation will go over, and when you actually load up the page where it says About Us right now, this white page has a transition, so it pulls out into this main page as it loads, so it looks pretty nice when it does that. So there are a few different layouts included in this presentation. All of them look pretty darn nice, and it's also really worth noting on this particular package that there was a very nice included PDF instruction set, so that's always really appreciated when people take the time to make those. It makes it a little bit easier to actually go in here and use this. So if you do have Keynote in your computer and you think this Keynote template will have a use in your presentation needs, I definitely recommend picking it up and checking it out. And these bottom 3 goods are free on Facebook only, so to get them, just hit this free on Facebook button, like Creative Market, and then a download link will appear. It's really easy to do. So first on the left here is Vintage Stripes pattern. The included file format is a PDF, so I pulled it in Adobe Illustrator here to show it, but I don't think it's in vector format. I wasn't able to expand it at all and pull this apart, so it does seem to be just an image in Adobe PDF format, but I did play around with it a little bit and try to blow it up really huge, and there wasn't any crazy pixelation, so this should be able to be resized larger fairly well. And the standard size that it's imported in is roughly 10 inches by 10 inches. But what you see here is basically what you get. It's just this one page that has a pretty neat watercolor background with a bunch of random yellow dots on it. I think this would work really nice for a greeting card or even a background for a hand-drawn illustration over the top that might have an interesting effect. But I do think that this is really well suited for cards and stationery, that sort of stuff. I'll zoom in a little bit closer here so you can take a better look at the overall watercolor effect. It looks pretty nice, and I like the overall color choices throughout this. The green and the yellow seem to work pretty well together. But that's really it for this craft paper. So if you think this is something you might have use for, pick this one up while it's free. Next we have Folded Paper Textures Volume 2. So this pack has 12 different textures in JPEG format, and they're all both very large and in very high quality. If I go to image and then image size, you can see this is roughly 4800 by 6400 pixels, so that should be plenty big for most projects you want to overlay these on. And there's 12 of them, so I'm going to quickly go through all the different textures included in this pack, and they have a very unique look to them. If I zoom in a little bit closer on this particular one, you can tell that some of the fill areas are much lighter and then they get much darker in others, so I'm not entirely sure how this pack was created. Maybe there was some kind of liquid covering placed over this, and then it was very quickly folded to clean out the edges. I'm not sure, but they definitely have a very unique and very interesting appearance to them with a lot of depth to the overall texture and appearance of them. And one way you can use these, you can double click on the background layer to unlock it. And then I'm going to hit Control-I on my PC or Command-I if you're on a Mac to invert the overall color selection. Then I'm just going to make another layer right here and put it behind the texture layer. Now I'm just going to fill this in with, let's say, this blue color right here. I'm going to hit Alt Backspace on a PC or Option Delete on a Mac to fill that in the layer. And then I'm going to select the actual texture layer here and just change it from normal on the blend mode to multiply. So that's a really quick and easy way you can actually overlay a texture on whatever it is you are working on. But I'm going to jump to the next texture here. And this page in particular has a really cool texture with it. It almost looks like a denim from a jean or something similar, where it has these neat little ridges where it's a little bit darker on the sides of the folds here, and then in the center it becomes a little bit lighter. So if I zoom in really close here, I'm at 100% here. You can tell the overall texture quality isn't pixelating at all. So sometimes when you look really close at a texture, the overall quality diminishes quite a bit when you zoom in at 100 or even 200%. You see a lot of weird pixelation or fragmentation, but that is not happening at all in these textures, which means they were scanned in at a very high resolution. They look really great up close. And I'm just going to zip through the last few that we have here since there's so many to pick from. I would suggest when you pick this pack up, you go through all the different options included and check out the individual traits on each of the textures so you can see how each of these looks a little bit different from each other and how the textures on the inside of some of these look, so you can really get in close and try to figure out how you can use these to apply to the different projects you're working on. And once again, remember you can hit Control-I or Command-I on a Mac to invert these and then just overlay them over any project you're working on. So if you have a photo, for example, this particular texture might look really cool, like it was folded inside your pocket or something similar to that. But as a person who really loves different textures, I can definitely appreciate the amount of time and care that went into making these. So these are a big recommendation from me. So if you think you'll have use for these on your different projects, I would suggest you pick it up while it's free. And last we have 25 faceted backgrounds. This file has 25 of these, and they're all in PNG format, so I selected 5 of my favorite ones to show in this video, and they're actually really quite large. If I go to image and then image size, they're 4000 by 3000 pixels, so that should be big enough for a lot of different possible usage scenarios. And they're all polygonal backgrounds, much like this one, and for the most part they're very colorful. And just something you can do with these, if you double click on the background to unlock it, just hit OK when you double click, and then hit Control-U on a PC or Command-U on a Mac, you can just go through the different hue options. So that can add a lot of versatility to these, and actually I think the transitions look really great as you slowly go through all the different possible hues. So I actually think if you were to make an animation, something like this, it could be really cool in a GIF or GIF format, depending on how you happen to say it. So definitely go through and play around with the colors on these and see if you can make a new coloration that you really like. Like I think this new coloration right here is really cool, so there should be a lot of versatility when you do that. But overall, these are very colorful, so do keep in mind you can use these for color inspiration as well. And here's a little bit more simplistic one with nice blue tones to it. And actually some of my favorite ones of this pack are these two, which are much more simplified, just very stark. It's all about the line work and the shape interaction, which I actually think is really cool because it sets this pack apart from a lot of the other packs out there that look very similar to these images, whereas these are really all about the shapes and how the shapes work together, and I think the overall effect worked pretty darn well. So if these look like something you might have use for, pick this pack up and check it out. So that's it for this week's free goods, and remember, these are free this week only, so be sure to act fast if you want to use them. Links will be in the description for all these items. And as always, if you find these videos helpful, please like and favorite, and if you want to see this video every week, please subscribe. This video is released every Monday to let you know what's free this week on Creative Market. Thanks for watching.